Hi, I'm Sam Sells, and welcome to my podcast, Clean Money. I like to say investing matters, and my show is to talk with everyday folks that are not only creating great success, but making an impact in society and improving the lives of others. That is my mission, and I want to share my stories and others with you. Welcome to Clean Money. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining another great episode of Clean Money Podcast. And joining us today is one of my good friends, Bronson Hill. As you can tell already, we have different philosophies about life. I'm all about hair, and he is all about none.
That's right.
And so, despite being greatly different, we share some commonalities, and that's why we are friends. And plus, we like to laugh and joke. So, everyone, we do talk again, on this podcast about the difference that we make in the world. And Bronson, man, you've been making a big difference in the world and a lot of investors' lives. You have fantastic reviews. You've been a great partner for people that I've known that have worked with you. And I'm going to go ahead and read or introduce you so our audience knows who you are. So Bronson Hill. So as a managing member of Bronson Equity, I wonder where you got that name from. Is a general partner in 2,000 multifamily units worth over $200 million. Bronson co-leads a large in-person multifamily meetup in Pasadena, California, called FIBI. Is that how you say that? FIBI, Pasadena Multifamily, which you can find at www.fibipasadena.com. Bronson is the host of the Mailbox Money Show and he understands the investor mindset, having spoken individually over the phone with over 1,300 investors. I'm sure that's been a lot more since you wrote this, and having raised over $30 million for real estate and his ATM machine fund deals. Bronson is the author, How to Use Inflation to Your Advantage, and is a regular contributor to YouTube and his blog. Bronson is the capital raising coach at Kingdom REI, which is actually where we met, at a faith-based group helping investors find deals and raise funds for large real estate deals. I am so excited having you on the pod. It's been looking forward to this. So thank you. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Sam. Really excited to be here. Clean money. I got to figure out how to get all this dirty money cleaned, right?
Yeah. Everybody looks at it a little bit differently, and it's like, is this you guys all about money laundering? I'm like, no, money laundering. Although money laundering is very high in real estate, it's one of the best places to launder your funds. Actually, I think probably the number one place now for sure is Bitcoin.
Right. Okay. And then so the second part of this is going to be all about Bitcoin and launder money through Bitcoin. No, I'm excited to be here, Sam. Really excited. I've been enjoying getting to know you last year or so, and just really love what you're doing and love how you're adding value to the community. And it's all about trying to increase the value we're adding in the world. And I love that. I love you're doing that. I'm doing that. So I really connect with folks that are really trying to make an impact.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know, I've seen the impact you've made with the folks that you've been coaching, which is great because some of them were terrible capital raisers, and now you're helping them learn how to do that, which is the fundamental skill to pretty much any business. You need to be able to raise money. You need to be able to pitch your ideas. You need to be able to pitch whatever you're offering, whether that's in real estate or not in real estate. And you've learned how to do that very well yourself. And now, of course, turning around and teaching others how to do that is fantastic. So tell me a little bit about how you went from your W-2 life, or did you just grow up in massive wealth and know all about commercial real estate?
Yeah. No, I wish I grew up like Scrooge McDuck swimming in a sea of money. But no, I grew up very middle class. I started doing paper routes, so delivering newspapers when I was 14, 15, worked at McDonald's. I just kind of just had various jobs growing up. And so I wasn't wealthy. I think one thing that I really benefited from as a kid is just being very frugal. So I would go to garage sales and thrift stores, and I just learned how to really the value of dollars, how to manage them and how to save and how to invest. So that was helpful. But I would say, you fast forward for about 10 years, I was a well-paid medical sales professional. And so I worked in medical device sales, talking to physicians about, selling them their devices and heart surgery. So it was really interesting. was making really good money, was making over 200,000 a year. I just really wanted to have more control over my time because I was doing this job and it was good. But they say most people don't really enjoy their work. I think it's because they don't have autonomy or they don't have freedom of time. And I think everybody says they want financial freedom, but what they really want is time freedom, right?
Mhm.
And so even for a lot of people that are listening that are active investors, really you can obviously make more money. You can't make more time. And so everybody, whether a homeless person or Elon Musk, we all have 24 hours in a day. So how do we use that time? What do we do with it? So I started to do single family investing for a few years, and then I had 4 or 5 houses. I was trying to get to 30 to be able to replace my income, or at least my living expenses, with passive income or somewhat passive income. And then I realized it was a lot of work. And then I had a cousin I hadn't seen in years who said, "Hey, this is a lot of work. Why don't you do multifamily?" And he was a multifamily guy. And
Mhm.
so I said, "Well, I'd love to, but I don't have the money." I think that's what a lot of people think is I'll do single family or small multi, and then I'll do that for 5, 10 years, and I'll get into multifamily. But he said, "No, you actually can raise the money." And he taught me about syndication, and it really blew my mind. I didn't even really know it existed. And a lot of times when we encounter something that's very just it's we have no experience with it, it just feels like this really foreign concept. And so I just started to learn as much as I could. Started a meetup, found an investor, found some partners. Now, 4 years later, I've raised $30 million. Left my corporate job about a year and a half ago, and I'm really excited to be in the field. So it seems like a lot when you talk about it. Oh, wow, a lot happened in a short amount of time, but there's been a lot of learning, a lot of growth, a lot of kind of bump my head against the wall, but just trying to figure out how to grow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You so did you start working, or let me say this correctly. Did you form Bronson Equity when you still had a full-time job?
Yeah, I did. I did. I actually had been working with some other partners for a couple years, and then we worked together. We raised a bunch. We raised about $15 million in 18 months. That was kind of how I really got going. I just partnered with somebody who was really successful, and I said, "Hey, how can I add value in this way?" And so I was doing calls all the time while working my full time jobs. I was kind of doing both, and then we kind of realized we were raising a lot of money, and the partnership, felt like okay, maybe it would be better to move a different direction. So I ended up starting my own thing. But I realized for me to really go out and launch and to do social media and put my stuff out there, it could blow up my job, right? Because I got this
Yeah.
great job and they could be like, "Hey, you're working this remote job, you're out in sales. How do we know what you're doing?" And it kind of did. It kind of started to, I had a manager, like a boss's boss, see what was going on. What's this Bronson Equity thing, whatever. But it
Yeah.
was at the end of it was kind of this beautiful destruction about 8 or 9 months later where I was like, "Oh, okay, I think it's time to go now." But it was actually
Yeah.
time. I had my living expenses covered. And I think that's the first form of financial freedom is when you can cover your living expenses, right? That's your rat race number. So once you can cover that through passive or investment income, you're free. You don't have to work, right? It's not that I had to replace my 200K. I only had to replace about 60K or whatever per year to cover my
Right.
living expenses, which was great.
Yeah, particularly in California, because that's like your car payment or something, right?
Well, it depends. It depends on what kind of car you drive, right?
Right. Yeah. So I remember in college when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I was old. I graduated with my bachelor's degree when I was 29 years old, which is like an old man.
That was like last year, right?
Yeah, last year. Don't look at my gray hair, please. Yeah. So I remember this guest lecturer came in and he drew this line on the board and he said, this point where your income exceeds your expenses, passive income exceeds your expenses, this is the point of choice. It's like
Yeah.
at this moment in time, you can now choose what to do in your life.
Mm.
And he goes, most people never get there because as their income goes up, so does their expenses. And they're always chasing.
Yeah.
And so you can have expenses of, what's the old adage like um, $1 million in income, $2 million in expenses, misery, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Uh, $10 in income, $1 in expenses, happiness, right?
Right. No, I think that's really something a lot of people miss. I think when it comes to financial freedom is we have, and that's the problem is if you're a spender, like if you have a Rolls Royce lifestyle, and and I know people that do have family members and friends, and they can never seem to get ahead. And I think that comes from that book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah,
Happy is the man who makes 10 pence and spends nine. Miserable is the man who makes,
yeah,
10 pence and spends 11, right? So it's just kind of
yeah,
like, where are you at, right? So and it's just living within your means. And as your income grows, your you don't have to increase your quality of life. You can, and I think, there's a quote from Rich Dad Poor Dad where it's talking about this principle, right? That the wealth, the poor, they will, spend their what they make, and they'll invest what's left. But the wealthy, they will invest, and then they will live off what's left, right? So it's kind of like the idea of what order do you invest in, right? So the more
Right.
as I make money in my business, I can't keep putting my money back in the business and back into investing, because I know that there's going to be this big nest egg, and it forces me to live more modestly now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all like, it's, I remember when I first realized that I had made $1 million. Like I turned to my dad. I'm like, Dad, you and I were, actually, I told him, I was like, Dad, congratulations, you're a millionaire. He's like, what? No, no. I'm like, no, look, this is your equity. This is this and that. And he just kind of scratched his head and he said, oh my goodness, I'm 68 years old
Hmm.
and I'm a millionaire. It's like, but I can't go spend that money. I'm like, no, because it's equity.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
can't buy a ham sandwich with $100 million of equity. You could be absolutely broke. And so we learned that principle like very apparently, right? You can be in crisis mode and be worth tens of millions of dollars, but you're in
Yeah.
crisis mode because you can't pay your bills.
Yeah.
And so now I don't, now I don't have to, I don't have to work. I work because I enjoy it. I really enjoy what we do. I'm not looking to buy a fancy car. I'm not looking to do any of that stuff. I just want to keep making a difference, right? And so at some point, it just stops being about the money. When you're super poor, I grew up really poor. As a kid, I didn't care, but as we get older and people point out like you got holes in your pants, unless you're in like the 80s, which I was, so it was cool to have holes in your pants. That's cool. But now, not so much if you're a professional. Anyways, where I'm getting at is, we have to decide ourselves what we can live with, and then it's not about the money, it's about that freedom. And
Hmm.
we just get confused because you look at popular media and it's always about the money,
Mm.
but it's not. It's about the freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is interesting. I just was with some friends recently, and their net worth is in the tens of millions of dollars, but they don't have a lot of liquidity. A lot of people I know that are really wealthy, they have a lot of money. They just have it in businesses and in real estate and other things. And it's like, they have some money in their bank accounts, but it's not like they like have. There's just kind of this
Yeah.
impression that, oh yeah, I've got all this money, it's everywhere, whatever. And I'm sure there are people like that, but most people I know that are very wealthy, they're invested and they look at, okay, how can I grow this? How can I move this? And it becomes more of a, impact, kind of what you're talking about, legacy. Like, how can I make an impact with what I have? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like you said, I don't have to work. I can do this, but I do it because I want to impact people's lives and I want people to become financially free, because I think when people are financially free, they can pursue their purpose. They can pursue spending time with their family. They can do the things that really matter. And I think that's, to me, the biggest thing about financial freedom is it allows you to really hone in on what your purpose is. I think it says something like 65% of people don't like their jobs, right?
Yeah.
Which is really sad. It's sad that we're, as a society, we're just kind of stuck doing things that we don't find meaning in or we don't find purpose in. And I just think purpose and meaning and going after kind of like what we are individually here to do, what God put us here to do, I think it's just the most important thing. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping people become financially free.
Yeah. That's it. Myself as well. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I work from the house now. I used to have an office that I go into a couple times a week. We already talked about that offline, but that's gone now. I don't have an office. I just work at home. And fortunately my 5-year-old hasn't run in here to ask me anything, but you know, it, it's fantastic. He's growing up with his dad close by and we have a wonderful relationship. Um, I remember my dad always working and I missed him like crazy, right? Growing up as a kid, because my dad was a wonderful man. And my mom was there stuck with all these boys, 5 boys running around terrorizing each other,
Mm,
just think, in their life, the difference we would have had um, if they were home and free, right?
yeah,
Home and free. You don't need a lot of money to travel overseas. You don't need a lot of money to travel in the States. Load up the van and go. You really don't need a lot of money to live in this world. I think Grant Cardone says you had to have $400,000 a year, or you're not making it. Like, get out of here. You
Yeah,
know, you're like 60 grand, I'm good, right?
yeah. That's
Because
funny.
and in fact, I think, I saw some statistics somewhere. Grant Cardone pays himself 60 grand a year, right? Um, Tim Cook was like 70 or 80 grand a year. All the rest is just um, equities, all investments. It's all
Right.
rolling and moving because you don't actually need that much money.
Yeah, true. It's really true. Yeah, a lot of times we think, again, it goes back to what is our goal? Is it piles of money? Well, it's really, what will that give you, and what does that mean for you? And I think at the end, when you have enough, then it's like, for me, my big why is I want to try to help end modern day human slavery in the world, which there are 20 to 40 million human slaves today. A lot of people don't realize that slavery is very alive and well, and there's more human slaves than there's ever been. And so to me, that's the big, hairy, audacious goal. I want to give resources and time and all kinds of things to be able to stop. So, but I think, yeah, again, once you have enough, then it starts, hopefully your focus starts to turn to how can I help others?
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? Why are we really here doing this? Right. It's like, we're here for a reason. And I think it's to make an impact in the world.
Yeah, it is to make an impact in the world. And we can. So tell me a little bit about, um, what's happening to folks as they invest with you, and how do people get started? What can they expect? What's life like for a passive real estate investor?
Yeah, so we do work with a lot of passive investors, and again, having so many calls with 1,300 one-on-one calls with passive investors over the years, it's just, you learn a lot. It's a lot of similar conversations, and this is, I guess, a tip for anybody who speaks or works with passive investors, is just trying to figure out who you're talking with. So when you get somebody on the phone or you get somebody who's interested, I always say, hey, this is kind of what we're going to talk about here today, and just kind of give them a flow of the talk about deals and different things. But I'll really try to figure out, is this person, are they really experienced? Have they done 10 syndication deals? And we're going to talk about cap rate inversions and rent growth assumptions or things like that. Or is this somebody who's never invested in real
Yeah.
estate? And so I think it's important to figure out who you're talking to. And so I asked the question, tell me about what's your work background, and what sort of investing experience do you have? Because that's going to really dictate the conversation. A lot of people that are passive started active, and they've got one or two rental houses. And I'm trying to basically paint a picture. Well, what happens? Can you 10x your income right now? Could you do, if you have, two houses, could you have 20? And a lot of people, like, their eyes just about bug out of their head, or like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Well, the issue with that is it's not scalable. It's not actually
Right.
passive. So a lot of people think they're doing passive investing when they're not really. So that's kind of the picture that I'm painting, is to try to say, how do you, get to a place where, okay, yeah, passive investing is not fully passive. You're still vetting a team, you're vetting a deal, but it's much more passive. And then once it goes, we have, you get the mailbox money, hence my podcast called The Mailbox Money Show. So a lot of people are really concerned about, how do I grow my wealth without taking up more of my time? A lot of people are really committed to education and networking. That's why they want to have calls and talk to people that are in the space. They want to go to meetups or conferences and learn. And then the other thing is really to try to find a way to reduce taxes. And this is such a big issue for a lot of high earners, especially physicians or CPAs or people that own businesses. Some people are paying, 40, 50, 60% in taxes. And
Yeah, it's
so that actually
ridiculous.
inspired me to start an event later in 2023 called the Zero Tax Investing Summit, that we're in the process of creating a one-day event with a bunch of CPAs and tax strategists to come in and just talk through, how do we do this, right? How do we find a way legally to pay less in taxes, or to invest and reduce our taxable basis? Because the best way to make more is to spend less, and particularly less in taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not realize how much people pay in taxes. Meeting doctors that are paying 250 grand a year, 300 grand a year in taxes. And I'm like, this is partly why the healthcare system is broke. I come from a healthcare background. I was a hospital administrator. I did,
Mm.
over a decade of global health, traveling the world, working with foreign militaries. And so while I've worked around doctors for a long time, it's always been on a little bit different end of the spectrum. Engaging with people in sub-Saharan Africa is different, or the local national doctors is different, of course, than it is in the States. They're making $600 a month and they're a doctor, right? It's different. Anyhow, so when I got back and I got involved, started doing this, and realizing how much people, could save. And, I've done a couple deals where it's like 100% dollar for dollar depreciation. So instead of giving the government $200,000, invest in here and I'll give you $200,000 of passive income losses. How that affects their specific tax situation, of course, is, between them and their CPA. And so we always coordinate and see how much they need. And sometimes we've been able to give them exactly what they needed to, do that zero tax scenario, which is absolutely possible. In your Trump said, I don't like to quote living presidents anyways, but Trump said, the system is rigged. I know, it's helped me. I use it. And whether or not you agree with that or not, the system is clearly written to favor real estate.
Yes.
I mean, just if you are an entrepreneur and you're just a solopreneur, you're going to get hammered, right? Small time business owners, the worst, literally the worst tax scenario there is.
Yeah.
High income earners, next. Real estate folks, none.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. When I meet real estate, I reduced my taxable bill from paying around 25% per year, or 40, 50K a year in taxes to it's about 1% now. So it's just way, way less. And a lot of people think, the question comes up a lot of times is like, well, I can't do that, or I don't know, whatever. I don't know how to do that. It's like, no, how can I do that? Or how can I talk to people and get in the right, conversations to figure out how to do it? And a lot of CPAs, I realize this too. I've been referring a lot of people to different tax professionals, and about 95% of CPAs at least, I have no idea about this stuff, right? It's such a specialized area, and they're just like, oh, you can't do that. You can't use, when you're a real estate professional, you can't use depreciation against ordinary income. It's like, well, no, there's a way to do it. It's you got to talk to the right tax professional, and you got to get the right advice.
Yeah, that was also surprising to me. And we ended up finding a great CPA who helped us. He's like, oh yeah, I know about syndications. I know about this, and this. And he's like, how do you want to do this? And how you want to do it? And it just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm sitting with like $3 million of depreciation. He's like, Sam, why don't you, work it so that goes to other people? And I was like, oh, brilliant. Why didn't I do that? Because I don't need $3 million of depreciation. I would have to take that much in income. And why would I do that? That would be idiotic, right? I just push that into other deals that immediately depreciate and wipe away the profits, right? And so it's like,
for sure. No, it's depreciation really is a game changer, and the real estate professional designation is awesome. And I think anybody who doesn't, is getting into this and is still, there are some rules around it. You've got to do 50%, 51% of your time has to be in real estate. It's got to be kind of your main thing. And but yeah, it really opens up some awesome doors, and especially too if like one spouse is a high earner, like a doctor, and the other is a real estate professional. I know a guy that actually his wife is a Fortune 1000 CEO, and he was a medical sales guy, a manager, and he was making over 200K a year. But they found that he would make more money quitting his job. They would keep more money than for him working his job, which is crazy. His wife could not believe it. Right? They met with a tax strategist, and it was like, what? But you got to understand the way the game is, the rules of the game, and that's one of the rules of the game.
So play the game, right? Understand, change the questions. Like, how do I get over it? And the answer is you find people like yourself, Bronson Hill, or others who can help people find the right CPAs, find the right strategies and guidelines, and use the system that is clearly rigged in real estate's favor. And it became even more so with Trump's tax laws. Some of those things have burned off, like bonus depreciation is no longer 100%. Now it's 80%, and it does have a burn down period, but clearly in real estate's favor.
Yeah, totally.
From 60% to 1%. I mean, how do you argue?
Yeah.
So tell me, you got started while you had a W-2 job, and you started raising money. You got hooked. You got drug into this. You mentioned before that it wasn't always easy. Tell me about some of the real difficulties that you actually faced and how you overcame them.
Well, I think for me, when you're getting started in something, even though I had done single family, had a single family rental for years and done some smaller single family, I felt like I was a bit over my head. Right? I was getting into this thing that I'd never done. You're talking about these multi-million-dollar deals, and people are, wiring you money. I remember one time I was doing a work conference, and I was sitting next to my boss, and there's, 6 or 8 other people in the room, and I kept leaving the room because we were raising money for a deal, and people were calling, just, "Hey, did you get my 100K?" And I'm like, or here's the wiring information. So I send the money. I felt like a spy. Or I'm like, send the money, kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
it felt really like, so balancing all that was a little tricky. And I think, for me, I was fortunate to have enough to have a job that had some flexibility where I could, you know, uh, doing a bunch of calls, I could stack, 20 investor calls on a Tuesday and just take that day off and just
Mhm.
do that all day. And that literally happened. And that was, some of those days were longer than others, but and then, or I just, get up earlier, I do afternoons. But I think I realized I had this idea of, I'm going to be hustling here for a couple of years, but my goal is within a couple, 2, 3 years to be able to leave my job. And within a couple of years, I was about ready. I ended up holding on for about another year. And so which look, in hindsight, I'm glad I did. But, it was really, I think one of the biggest challenges we all have, whether you're full-time real estate or you're have a job, is just time. And if you have a
Yeah.
family, it's just hard to find enough time. And so what I've realized is that there's a great book called Who Not How
Mhm.
that really sometimes, like even before I left my job, I hired a full-time virtual assistant, and she's amazing. Like she does a lot of my, like, like, oh, you have great content, and you do this stuff. Well, we create systems, right, that are repeatable, and she manages those systems. And then we keep making edits to them and whatever. And we bring more team members in, we can have more people basically work with those systems, and we create those systems and we try to document those things just so that it's all kind of set up, right? So that it's, if somebody were to, a team member were to be lost, we could kind of say, hey, well, this is how this works. And we just kind of plug them in. And so as I grow up a team, that's kind of something that's really helpful. So there's a friend of mine that says he works in real estate, but he believes that every person that makes over $100,000 a year should have a full-time personal assistant or virtual assistant. And they're not that expensive. I mean, for like, less than $1,000 a month or about $1,000, you can get an assistant, and they can just do all kinds of things for you. A lot of times people are like, well, what would I do with this person? But in reality, that just lasts for, about 30 days. Then you're like, I got so many things for them to do.
Yeah.
You need another one. So I think just really kind of, time management is a big one. How do you do multiple things if you have multiple commitments? And I think it just comes down to priorities and really trying to figure out each day, each month, each quarter, each year, what really are the big goals for this year, this quarter, today. And you don't have to do everything. You just got to be consistent. You got to be consistent at working towards your goals. And that's why I'm a big goals guy. I go to goals events every year, or I do a goals retreat just personally, and I'll review my prior goals. I'll create new ones. I'll do all kinds of things to try to say, well, where am I focused at? What do I want to be? And then if I'm going to do that, what do I need to do to get there? And so
Mhm.
I'm a big believer of, life just kind of goes on unless you actually intentionally make goals, what I want to have happen. So
So what's your BHAG? What's your
yeah,
big,
well,
hairy, audacious goal?
my biggest one is to end modern day human slavery in the world, which is big, hairy, audacious, is 20 to 40 million human slaves. So that's the biggest hairy, audacious goal. I'm writing a book right now, so that's I've got, I'm working on that. I'm almost finished with the draft. I've got maybe a few more weeks. Hopefully, I'll be done with that. And then yeah, I'm just continuing to try to grow and network and really try to build the business. So I'm not doing as much of the work. It's more people are doing work in the business, and I'm helping to innovate in the business.
That's awesome. I love that big, hairy, audacious goal, by the way. Most people's BHAGs aren't very big, right? I want to be a millionaire. That's tiny,
Yeah, right. I know.
you
What do
know?
you do after that? What do you do after you achieve that?
Yeah. Yeah. All my life, I told myself it was super hard. And then when I got out of single family and got into commercial, uh, it was just a year or so.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I start this back when I was 20?
right, right.
Wonderful. With Thank you for sharing that. Um, Tell me something wild about yourself that not very many people know.
Well, let's see a few things. I do competitive Spartan races, so I ran a basically half marathon up and down hills with obstacles and things. And then about a month after that, I had a pretty bad sciatic issue, so I've been kind of a little less mobile the last couple of months. But I also love traveling, so I've been to 41 countries and just love, love, love traveling. Just in Spain a couple weeks ago, and just
Oh,
love getting out of the
wonderful.
country and seeing the beautiful world. So
What's your favorite country or your top two?
Yeah, favorite country I think is Iceland. Just it's amazing beauty, unbelievable. It's probably number two. Is a little hard to go to right now. Is Peru. They're having some civil
Yeah,
unrest there, but Machu Picchu and some hiking and just some beautiful areas there. So a couple of favorites.
my brother was in Iceland last year. Was it last year? Uh, and he loved it. And so now it's been on my bucket list, but we just moved it up a few places. I think Nepal is still my favorite.
Oh, you've
Uh,
been to Nepal? I'd love to go there. It looks amazing. Yeah.
it's amazing. The people are amazing. Outside of that, I lived in Germany for a while. I still have a very deep love for Germany, Germans, um, the culture, Bavaria particularly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great.
but
Great.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So biggest mistake you've ever made, the worst
Biggest
one.
mistake in real estate or in life?
Oh, let's talk about real estate because
How long you want to be here? I got a lot of mistakes to go through. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think I'd say biggest mistake. I look at mistakes. I had a conversation with Rod Khleif recently, and he said, in my life, everything is either success or it's seminar. And so it's either a seminar or success. So it's like if it fails, and there's a guy, he came from nothing, made $50 million, lost it all in 2008, and then made it all back. So like this guy's
yeah,
been through a lot, right?
yeah,
So, but I think I try to look at that, and I was talking to somebody else about that today. It's just, you know what? It's either success or it's seminar. Like either I'm going to be successful, or I'm going to learn a lot. And so I think one of my biggest failures or challenges, I actually, back when my net worth was just a couple hundred K, I lost $70,000 in one day on an options trading strategy. And that was really painful. That was a really hard lesson. It was happening in one day. It was like in one day. I'd made 20,000 and then I lost 70,000. I had like a net loss of 50,000 over a few months, but it was basically in one day all the $70,000 thing happened. And I think, when you have those moments, I mean, I really went through feelings of like, man, I'm a failure, dude. What the heck? I didn't, what did I do wrong? Or I'm never gonna, kind of some of that self-talk we get into. But what I realized from that is I'm not a good options trader, and that's okay.
yeah,
I have other strengths. And a lot of
yeah,
people that I know that are highly successful have lost over $1 million or 500. They've lost lots of money in deals. Actually, this happened at a meetup that I was attending in LA where there was like 50 people in the room, and the speaker goes, "How many of you lost more than $50,000 in a deal?" And then some hands go up. How many lost more than 100,000? And more hands go up. How many lost more than 250 in one deal? And how many lost more than 500,000? At this point, and then he says, "How many lost more than a million?" And it's progressively fewer hands. And at the end, there's only two hands up, and it's just himself and the leader. And both these people are like pretty high net worth people. So I know that so I think part of it is just, we can be afraid of failure, or we can continue to put ourselves through things and just try. And I think there's this great quote by Michael Jordan. He's like, "I've missed 50,000 shots. I've had taken the game winning shot 57 times and missed, and whatever, all these different things." And I've failed all these times, but he said, "And that's why I'm successful," right? Is the
yeah,
idea that I keep putting myself out there, knowing that I'm going to fail, and that, it's the idea of failing forward and continuing to grow. So I'm a big person of, take lots of different chances and risks and go for it. Obviously, if you're putting all your money in something, there's a chance to go to zero. Obviously, evaluate that differently. But just a lot of things in life are just, what happens if I fail? Okay, my ego might get a little hurt. I might lose a little money, but it's not a deal breaker. I don't go to zero or anything. But I just
yeah,
think those are the situations. The more I'm willing to be able to fail, I go after something really great and I'm able to really do it, then I'm going to have really achieve some great things in my life.
yeah, absolutely. I have found that because I've had failures and um, most of those we've been able to recover uh, and get things back on track and then win the day, right? Some of those it's just they're won 150 grand, and you're just thinking
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do about that other than seminar, perhaps,
Yeah.
and teach other people how to do that. I will tell you, Bronson, one of the things I think you did right in the beginning that is the key, in my opinion, to success in commercial real estate is that you went and partnered with people who knew what they were doing.
Mm.
I was too dumb. I'm a DIY guy, right? Do it yourselfer. I'm going to read all the books. I'm going to watch all the YouTube videos and I'm going to go out there and do it. And at first it worked great and then it didn't. And so now, I teach students. Yesterday, one of them left W2 world and became a full-time real estate person. It's just so happy. I'm so excited for him. Huge, right? Huge.
Yeah.
And when I met him, it was just a dream and a W2 and working his guts out. And he's 50 something years old. And he's like, I need to replace this.
Yeah.
He's like, well, great. I can show you how to do that. But you have to be willing to listen, learn, and work with others. And you did so. And instead of spending, like I did, years going through the pain of screwing it all up, you jumped right to the head of the pack with other people who could teach you while you were doing. And that is the biggest accelerator. Coaching courses, masterminds, they're a fantastic way to start and then figure out who to partner with, and then go from there so that you can do this on your own. Listening to those guys who have been through the hard knocks in life and come out in particular.
Yeah, you're right. That's the biggest thing. Partnership is huge. And especially when you do bigger deals. I mean, you do a single family, you can do a lot of it yourself and have an agent and a property manager. But when you get doing bigger stuff, I don't know anybody that does deals over 100 units that it's just them. It's always a team. Like it's always a team. There's always people involved with the raising the money, the operations, the due diligence, everything. I mean, there's so much to do with it. So it's great when there's a team. So it forces you to work as a team, which is cool.
Yeah. Even fantastically wealthy individuals, their family office is their team that does the work.
Yeah.
That's it. Right? It is teamwork, 100%. Well, I really appreciate you being on the pod with me. And I know you've done so many awesome things and you're helping people and you're giving back. You have an awesome BHAG. I know your other goals, intermittent goals, keep changing because some things go incredibly well, other things go really bad. This year, 2023, it's not 2008, but you're going to see a lot of bankruptcies, foreclosures in the commercial space because of all the bridge debt that's come out there. We've been seeing that a lot. 2 towers in LA, by the way, are in foreclosure right now.
Wow.
Because that operator, I don't know, their debt situation, right? When your debt goes up 7 times,
right.
It puts you in a bad situation. And it doesn't just mean you're a little guy. You could be a huge guy and still get caught by the market because the market always gets to say. I found that people who grumble the most are ones who are inexperienced. So if a deal goes bad, it goes bad. It could be the best people in the world on it, and it still goes bad. And others understand. Rod Cleef understands, right? He knows.
Right. Sure.
Anyhow. So I wish you all the best, man. I know you're going to continue to skyrocket and continue to do great things. And you're going to have partners help you in the world of slavery. I mean, that's not a one-person gig, right?
Yeah, it is a huge issue. It's second, most powerful criminal organization in the world, $150 billion a year industry. So it's pretty crazy.
You talking about the U.S. government, or are you talking about?
Yeah, I think both, right? That'd be probably like more of instead of 150 billion, it'd be like 100 or
trillions.
We're in. Yeah, just spend more money that we don't have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. All right. Well, thank you again, of course, for joining the Clean Money podcast, where we talk about impacts, things that we're doing to change the world, whether that is really the world, really it's one individual at a time. That's how we make the biggest difference. And I know your investing has impacted your life, your family's life, your extended family's life, your friend's life, and then all those who have joined you. And so I want to commend you for that. Really enjoyed speaking with you as always. Thank you so much for being on the call, Bronson.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Clean Money, where we talk about sustainable investing that improves society. We are passionate about creating great investment returns to investors who want to use their money to make a positive social impact in the world. If you enjoyed the episode, we'd appreciate a 5-star review. And if you are interested in making your investing matter, please connect with us at wildmountaincapital.com. Or you can find me, Samuel Sells, on LinkedIn, on Twitter at Sells_Samuel, on Instagram at Clean Money Sam, or on Facebook. And finally, make your investing matter.